So we got a 2002 Lexus SC 430 with a little bit of wheel issue. Check this out, and I'll show you what we found. So this is the lower control arm. The upper control arm is what that is. The lower control arm is this one, where it goes into the frame. This bolts up into the frame. These two bolts are broken, and that pulled right out of the frame. That whole thing's all cracked. All right, well, there's your piece that was supposed to be welded, part of the frame. It's all rotted. There ain't nothing in there. That's what holds this whole thing. So this whole thing moves, and that's what makes your wheel go back and forth. Keeps the wheel straight. And then you got something else up here all loose. Cut that off later. So we got to figure out how to get that piece. How to get that cleaned up and weld a plate in there, and then weld that to the plate. Alright, so you got to take the whole side apart. I take the strut completely out. Take the upper control arm completely out. Strut, spindle, brakes, everything got to come off, so that we got enough room to move. See if you can see this. So this thing sits like this. It needs to sit flat like that, and then it's got to get lined up. So we got to make sure we can get that, because this bolt doesn't come out of here. So now we got to figure out how to weld it back in there. All right, so we got the bolt out of the lower control arm. These two are frozen, so I had to take that off to get that out of the way. And now you could really see what happened. The bolt. So this thing, this is just part of the frame or whatever. It sits in there like that. And all that bolted to that. So now we gotta cut this away nice and clean, like that, all the way around. Grind that all down. Fit this in here. Make sure it goes back in the exact same spot, like that. And then weld a plate on the inside and the outside, hopefully, or something to get it to stay in the same spot. And then all these other bolts are broken. They look like they've been broken for a long time. That one I had to cut off, because that's the same thing. That rotted right through. Now we're gonna see if I can weld a nut or something in there. This side leaking. The rack is still leaking, so it's supposed to look like this. Bolt, stud coming through. It gets a bolt. There's a brace that goes across here. That one's bolted on. All right, let me see if I can get this. Start cleaning this up. All right, so this is how we're going to do this. We have a bolt like this. I mean, this is the piece that goes on here. This is the washer. I'm going to put this on here like this, right? So it'll be centered in that. And then this is going to get welded all the way around here like this. And then this whole thing is going to go up into there, and then I'll be able to weld it all the way around like that. And then, being that this will be like that, that part of the bushing will still fit, and it won't interfere with the alignment, because it'll still be in the exact same spot, because it'll sit on top. So that top piece will sit like that, and this will still sit where it's supposed to, like just like that, and all that will be welded to that. All right, so that's what we're going to do. Get this thing all cleaned up, grind this all done, get all this grease off my hands so I don't catch on fire, and we'll fix it up. cleaned up like that. That's going to go like that, and that's going to go like that. Just like that. And I'll weld all this and it'll go right back up into place. So basically that's going to look like that. I'm going to put a ring around it, and then I'll be able to weld the other side too. Alright, and that will still fit. Alright, and then that will still fit just like that. Perfect. Now all we gotta do is grind this down on this side. There we go. Right there, we're gonna weld that side on, and then we're good to go. Alright, so that's all welded all the way around. And I gotta clean that and weld this up into that. Alright, got that all ground up, cleaned, ready to go. Alright, so I got this bolt all cleaned up. We got it lined up. Got it tacked in place so I know that's where it's gonna go. We're gonna test fit, make sure it's straight. And then we gotta put this back in here. Alright, we'll be able to tighten that and then hook it back up. So right now it looks like it's in line with that. It's definitely in line with that. So it looks like it's in a good spot. I'm going to check it, and if it's good I'm going to weld it all up. show you this. So I'll weld it all the way around. You can't just weld that little puck back in there because it will rip it out because there's no metal. So back here, all the way back around, the metal's better. That's why we use that big washer. And it's like 3/16 thick, so it's nice and thick. Got plenty of meat to hold. Alright, so I'm going to finish welding all that and then let it cool down and start putting it back together. Alright, well, got that welded. We'll let that cool down and then we'll start fitting this all back together. Alright, so the other thing is this this bracket gets bolted on to here like this, like that side. So you got that bolt ripped out from this ripping back and forth, and this one is snapped off. So I'm going to weld a stud in here and a stud in here, and hopefully that'll keep it all in place. Let's see if I can get that done. Alright, so made another one like that, welded it to the back, and that's going to fit up right in here and it'll still sit flush. Now I got to figure out what I'm going to do with that one. Alright, so you got this thing made up with a stud on it. Clean this hole all up, smack that in. This fits flush like that. I'm just going to line it up with the piece that goes on here. Alright, I got that stud in there. That goes like that. That's going to go like that. So that's where that sits. So we're going to hold that there like that. And then tack this in. Good. Now we can tack this in. should be that. So you can see that's welded up. Now we got to figure out something with this. I might have to just put the bracket on and then tack the bracket on the back, because this side's broken too, same thing. So if it ever has to come off, just snip the weld off. But at least now we got an anchoring point. All right. That's all good. Keep that from rusting. All right, we should be good. Self-etching primer on there. And start putting it back together, I guess. All right. That goes in there. That's like that. Drop it down. Tighten it all back up. All right, so we got this plate. Gotta go back on. So that's on there. I got that back on there. The eccentrics back on. This goes like this. I got a new nut for that. Hard left for that side. Okay. And like I said, that we're just gonna put a tack on it. And then there's a brace that goes across here also. So that's it. All right. Now, 9/16. The other one. That's it. All right. Very good. Good with that one. All right. So I went to get the control arm earlier. It was the wrong one. So now we gotta wait till 8 o'clock or after 8 o'clock or something tonight to get the right one. So in the meantime, I'm just gonna start putting as much of this back together as I could, because I need to put the control arm back in before I put the strut back in. So I can put this back together, and I can put this arm and stuff back together. So at least that'll be back on. All right, so we finally got the right control arm. Got that in place. Put the strut back in place. Got to clean the bolts up for this. Once I get the strut back in place, now we can put the sway bar back into place. Get this actuator back into place. And then we can put the spindle back on, hook the ball joint up, put the tie rod all back together, and then do the brakes. All right, so got all that back together, got the strut back in. I got to go back on top now, tighten all the bolts for the struts. Got all these bolts back in. I got to take this back off. I'm going to knock this stud out, and I'll put a nut and a bolt here, like, because that's got a stud there. And then we got to put the brace back in, but this is bent. So we're going to straighten that out, clean it, straighten it out, and then put that back up. And then I can let it down and finish buttoning up the top of the strut. All right, so I took this thing apart. Now we got a stud there and a stud there. Got this thing all cleaned up, straightened it out. And now we got that to fit right. We'll put that back in, nut and bolt all that, so that all stays together. Yeah, that's like a support for that. All right, got that brace back on, all bolted back on. Got extra bolts back on it. Now it's good. All right, get the top back on. Finish putting the strut back on and put the wheel back on. So this is the top of the strut here. So all this got to be put back together and then tighten back up. So we got to take that apart to get that control arm off. So the other video part didn't come out, but this is a picture of when I took the wheel off. They used lock washers as a spacer for the wheel. Well, now the lock washers are digging into the back of the rim. You need to use a full-size spacer if you're going to do something like that. All set. All the stuff sticking out everywhere. Okay.